And where do you live, Arba?
North Hoosick.
In North Hoosick. Could you tell us a little about what you did before you went into the service?
Well, I did mostly carpentry work.
I see. You did carpentry work, and where'd you go to school?
In the Hoosick Falls schools.
You went to the Hoosick Falls schools.
Yes, I started in the rural schools.
I see. And then you went on to, did you go to the high school here?
Yes.
The one that was on Main Street where the American Legion is now? Is that the high school? Or did you go up to the Walter A. Wood?
Up to Walter A. Wood school.
I see. Okay, so you went to school there, and then what happened with the service? Did you get drafted? You enlisted? What happened?
Yes, I was drafted in July of 1942.
I see. And what happened? Where'd they send you?
Well, I went first to Camp Upton. From Camp Upton, I was sent to Camp Lee in Virginia. And then, let's see, I was transferred to Langley Field eventually in Virginia, and I got into the Air Force there. Then I was sent from there to well, let's see, I ended up anyway after that in Syracuse University. We were supposed to, in the Air Force program at that time, we were supposed to have 2 years of college education, and those of us that lacked some were sent to what was called CTD, College Training Detachment, and I was at Syracuse University in the summer of 1943, and then I went from there to Classification Center in Nashville, Tennessee, and I started from there. I started in pilot training, and I was at Biloxi, Mississippi, but I was eliminated there and reclassified as bombardier, and I went then to the bombardier school in Midland, Texas, and I graduated from there, and then I was worked into combat training, but on a crew. And
where'd you take that training? Louisiana, or where did they give you the training, the combat training? You said you had.
Well, it was in the South.
Yeah.
I forget exactly.
All right, it's not. I just wondered.
Yeah.
All right, so you were trained in the South, and then you got shipped overseas. Is that what happened from there?
Yes. I went. Well, let's see. I went to shipped out of Boston. We went overseas on a boat. A lot of people didn't like that, but the people who were sending us said that the people over there didn't care how you got there, you could swim over if you wanted to. All they wanted was replacements. So I went to England. The base was Nettishall, that was near Thetford, England, and then from there I was assigned to a crew, and I flew missions then over the continent.
I see. And it was a B-17 that you were on?
B-17, yes, as a bombardier.
And your missions were over into France and Germany, or?
Mostly in Germany, yeah.
Mostly in Germany? I
Yes,
see. And how many missions did you have over there?
24.
24. I noticed in the things that you got oak leaf cluster or something. What does that mean?
Well, the oak leaf cluster is the duplication of a medal that you have already received.
I see. And what medals were they?
There was an air medal, and I got the clusters for that. And I was stopped at 24 missions over there because if I had a 25th mission, that was considered a complete tour, and they couldn't send me on any more combat after that, so they stopped me at 24 because they wanted crews at that time to send over to the other theater,
Pacific.
the Pacific Theater. But before I got assigned to a crew to go over there, why, the war over there ended, so I never got to the Pacific.
So that's why they stopped you at 24, because
Yeah.
they wanted to make sure that they could still send you to combat it.
Yeah.
I see. And so you were in England then, the war was over in Japan, and so they sent you home, is that it?
Yes, I was back from England.
Yeah, so you came back to the United States,
Yeah.
and you were discharged where? And but you know when, where and when? Not the where isn't important, more the when. When were you discharged?
Well,
During, you don't have to
I
give the
was
exact.
eventually discharged in 1955?
Oh, you in the service you stayed in after the, because you went in,
Oh, yes, I stayed in the reserve after the combat.
oh, when you came home you joined the reserves and you stayed in
Yes,
it.
the reason I stayed in the reserve was that the war in the other theater was still going on, and so I didn't want to take a discharge then because I didn't know but what they would draft me again for the other war, and I'd have to start from the bottom again. So I stayed in the reserve and kept my commission, and well, all in all, I've got the commission right on through. I'm retired now.
I see.
But well, yeah, I'm out of reserve now. But I still have the commission there. As I mean, more or less a designation. It isn't anything official now. I don't have any more obligations.
Yeah, right. You're out of the reserve. But you were, when you were flying as a bombardier, what was your rank?
First lieutenant. I worked up to first lieutenant.
I see. Okay, is there anything else you could tell us about the service as far as your missions go? Anything that you'd like to say about them? You did 24 missions. I mean, they were over enemy territory, all of them, and
well, I had a different attitude toward the missions than a lot of people did. I didn't have sense enough to know that I could get hurt, so I just took interest in the thing, and I told a lot of people that I had the best seat in the house for the biggest show in history.
Yeah.
And I sat in the nose of B-17, and I could look down, and I could recognize a lot of the things that were on the news all the time, the war that was going on the ground. And as I say, I just was interested in it, and I came through unscathed, and I've always enjoyed looking back on it.
well, if you did 24 missions, I mean, there's, you know, and you were the bombardier, you were the guy that dropping the bombs, and you were the guy that was, they turned the plane over to when they were over the enemy territory and ready to drop.
When you got to the IP, it was called, initial point, where you turned onto the bomb run, and that was a few minutes that the plane was at least theoretically in charge of the bombardier, and the bomb site automatically controlled the whole plane and the whole works.
I see. And are there, what raids, do you name any cities? You remember any cities that you were part of raids on, or?
Well, the main one that I remember was Dresden. That was supposed to be a pretty tough target.
Yeah, it was.
And I guess the main reason I really remember it was that we bombed the highest from there that I ever bombed. That was 28,000 feet. We were supposed to average 25,000, but as we were approaching the target, we could see what was going on ahead of us. Ahead of us, the groups that were over the target, and the way they were catching it, why our lead commander decided to go higher, and we went to 28,000 feet, and by the time they had measured us again, well, we were pretty well off the target, so we got very little flak on it, and
you dropped your bombs and took off back for home.
and headed back.
Yeah. Well, great. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the war or anything before we go into what you did after the war? Anything you'd like to say so people remember? Or?
Well, I don't remember anything particular.
Did you ever meet any fellas from Hoosick Falls when you were overseas?
No, I didn't meet anybody overseas. The only one from Hoosick Falls that I remembered being associated with was Emil Bush from North Hoosick, and that was when I was still in training at Syracuse.
I see. Well, that's great. So that was, we're glad we heard about your service. Now, what did you do when you came home, Arba?
Well, I went back to carpenter work.
I see. And
I worked at that for quite a while, and then I decided I wanted something different, and I got into the lumbering business on a small scale.
okay, so you did drive school bus for a while too, I remember.
Yes.
Okay, so that about takes you back to now. Now you're completely retired, right?
Yeah.
Completely retired. Well, we thank you very much for coming over and telling us that story. Interesting, and thank you again.